I was lying in that hospital bed, eyes barely open, monitors beeping their steady rhythm, when I heard them in the hallway. My son Derek and his wife Amber, talking in hushed voices they thought I couldn't hear. Amber's tone cut through the quiet like a blade. "We need to move fast while he's weak. The farm's worth over $2 million. My parents found a developer who'll pay cash." Derek's voice wavered with uncertainty. "I don't know, Amber. It feels wrong." Her response came swift and cold. "He's dying, Derek. We're just being practical. Sign the papers tomorrow." My eyes snapped fully open the moment those words settled into my brain. The heart monitor spiked slightly, and I forced myself to breathe slowly, deliberately. I kept my body still, my face slack, pretending to be lost in whatever medication they'd pumped into me. Every instinct screamed to sit up and confront them, but something deeper told me to wait, to watch, to listen. A nurse pushed through the door, her shoes squeaking on the linoleum floor. She glanced at the monitor, then at me with professional concern etched across her features. "Mr. Hilton, are you okay?" Your heart rate jumped. I mumbled something incoherent, let my eyes flutter like I was barely conscious. She adjusted something on the IV line, made a note on her clipboard, and left. I was a 67-year-old man who'd just survived a heart attack 2 days ago. Playing weak wasn't difficult. The hard part was containing the rage building in my chest. 5 minutes passed. Then Derek and Amber entered my room. I watched them through half-closed eyes, studying these two people I thought I knew. Derek looked terrible. My son was 38 years old, but right now he looked 50. Dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped, hands shoved deep in his pockets. He hung back near the door while Amber approached my bedside. She was 35, blonde hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail despite the late hour. Her clothes were expensive, carefully chosen. Even here in a hospital room at 10 o'clock at night, she looked like she was ready for a business meeting. "Dad," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Can you hear me? The doctors say you need total rest." She reached out and patted my hand. Her touch felt cold, mechanical, like she was touching a piece of furniture instead of a human being. Her eyes weren't on me, though. They kept darting toward the door, checking to see if any nurses were within earshot. "Derek and I have been talking," she continued. "We want you to know we're taking care of everything. You don't need to worry about the farm or any of that. We're handling it." Derek finally spoke up, his voice tight. "Amber, maybe we should wait until he's better before we discuss anything." She shot him a look that could freeze water. "The property taxes are due next month, Derek. The equipment needs repairs. Who's going to handle all that? Your father can barely stand up right now." She pulled out her phone, swiped through something, then thrust the screen toward Derek. "See? The real estate agent says we need to act now. The market's perfect for farmland. We'll never get a better price." I kept my breathing steady, my face blank. But inside, my mind was racing. Real estate agent? They'd already contacted someone? How long had this been going on? The door opened again. This time it was my doctor, a man in his early 50s named Howard Sullivan. He'd been taking care of me since they brought me in from the farm 3 days ago. "Good evening," Dr. Sullivan said, flipping through my chart. "I have some updates on your father's condition." Amber stepped back, composing her face into an expression of concern. Derek moved closer, genuinely worried. Dr. Sullivan looked up at them with a slight smile. "The good news is, the heart attack was moderate, not severe. Mr. Hilton's heart muscle sustained some damage, but with proper medication and rest, we're looking at a full recovery." "Full recovery?" Derek's relief was visible. "Yes. He'll need to avoid stress and heavy lifting for 6 to 8 weeks, but mentally, cognitively, he's completely fine. His brain function is excellent. With proper care, there's no reason he can't return to managing his affairs independently." I watched Amber's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. That wasn't the news she wanted to hear. "When can he go home?" Derek asked. 3 days. "We want to monitor him a bit longer, adjust his medications, but then he should be able to return to familiar surroundings. That's often best for recovery." After Dr. Sullivan left, Amber stepped into the hallway. I could hear her voice, sharper now, no longer putting on the sweet act. She was on her phone. "Craig, it's me. No, I've been working on this for 6 months. I have the appraisals, the surveys, everything ready." My heart rate spiked again, but I kept my breathing even. "He keeps all the property documents in his office. I photographed everything last Thanksgiving when we visited. Every deed, every title, every bank statement. There was a pause. I could imagine someone responding on the other end. Derek will sign. I'll make sure of it. His father won't even know until it's done. We can have the sale completed before he's strong enough to fight it. Another pause. $2.3 million. That's what the developer is offering. Cash deal, quick close. The conversation continued, but I'd heard enough. This wasn't a decision made in panic because I'd had a heart attack. This was calculated, planned. Amber had been setting this up for half a year at least. She'd been going through my private papers during family visits, taking photos, getting appraisals, surveying my land without my knowledge or permission. And she'd been doing it while smiling at my dinner table, hugging me goodbye, calling me Dad. Derek came back to my bedside after Amber finished her call. He stood there for a long moment, just looking at me. In the dim light of the hospital room, I could see tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad," he whispered. So quiet I almost didn't hear it. "I don't know what else to do." Then they left. I lay there in the darkness, listening to the beep of the heart monitor, thinking about my late wife, Martha. She'd been gone 5 years now, taken by cancer, when she was only 62. At their wedding 7 years ago, Martha had pulled me aside and said something I'd dismissed as typical mother-in-law worry. "Hilton, watch that girl. She's got eyes like a hawk watching a field mouse." I'd laughed it off, told her she was being overprotective, said Amber was just ambitious, that it was a good quality. Martha had looked at me with those wise eyes of hers and said, "There's ambitious, and then there's predatory. You learn to know the difference." Now, lying in this hospital bed, I realized Martha had seen something I'd completely missed. Amber wasn't my daughter-in-law. She was a threat. And she'd been circling my farm, my land, my life's work for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. Well, she'd picked her moment. But I wasn't dead yet. Not by a long shot. I decided right then that I'd stay quiet. I'd play weak. I'd watch and listen and gather information. And when the time was right, I'd fight back. But I had no idea just how bad things were about to get. 3 days later, Derek drove me home from the hospital. Amber had stayed behind, said she had errands to run. The drive took 45 minutes through Iowa farmland, fields stretching to the horizon on both sides of the county road. It was late March, and the earth was just starting to wake up from winter. When we pulled into the long gravel driveway, my farmhouse came into view. White clapboard siding, green shutters, wraparound porch where Martha and I used to sit every evening. The big red barn stood behind it, and beyond that, 300 acres of the richest soil in Jefferson County. 4 generations of my family had worked this land. My great-grandfather bought it in 1897. My grandfather expanded it during the Depression. My father modernized it after World War II. And I'd maintained it, improved it, loved every inch of it for 47 years. Derek helped me out of the truck, hovering like I might collapse any second. "Easy, Dad. Take your time." "I'm fine, son. Had a heart attack, not a lobotomy." He smiled weakly at that, but the worry didn't leave his face. He carried my small overnight bag inside, got me settled in my recliner, brought me water and my medications. His helpfulness felt excessive, guilty. "Derek, you don't need to fuss over me like this. I just want to make sure you're okay." "I'm okay. You should get home. I'm sure Amber's wondering where you are." His face twitched at the mention of her name. "Actually, she's probably out with her parents. They've been around a lot lately." That was interesting. The Hartleys, Gerald and Patricia, lived in Des Moines, about an hour and a half away. We'd never been particularly close. Saw them at holidays, at the grandkids' birthdays, but that was about it. After Derek left, I sat in the quiet house for a while, just listening. The old farmhouse had its own sounds. Floorboards creaking, wind whistling through gaps in the window frames, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. All familiar, all home. But something felt wrong. I got up slowly, mindful of Dr. Sullivan's warnings about taking it easy, and walked to my office. It was a small room off the living area, converted from what used to be Martha's sewing room. File cabinets, a desk, my computer, shelves full of farm records going back decades. The file cabinet drawer was open about an inch. I always closed them completely. Always. It was a habit born from years of keeping records organized. I pulled the drawer open fully and looked through the folders. Everything was there, but the order was wrong. Someone had gone through these files and put them back, but not quite right. Papers that should have been clipped together were loose. Folders that should have been at the back were near the front. My lockbox, a small fireproof safe where I kept important documents, had been moved. Not much, just 2 inches to the left. I knew because it always sat directly on top of a water stain on the shelf, a ring left by a coffee cup years ago. Now it was slightly off the mark. Someone had been in here. Recently, while I was in the hospital. I checked the lock, not damaged. That meant they'd either picked it or found my key. I kept a spare hidden in the barn, in an old coffee can on a shelf near the tack room. I made a mental note to check if it was still there. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Amber's phone call, about the file cabinet, about Derek's guilty expression. Morning came early. It always does on a farm, even when you're not working it anymore. I was up at 4, old habits dying hard. In the kitchen, making coffee, I found 3 business cards lined up on the counter like accusatory fingers. All real estate agents. I picked them up, read the names. Harrison Realty. Midwest Farm Properties. Prairieland Group. I flipped one over. On the back, in handwriting I recognized as Amber's, was a note. Craig, the developer is ready. Just get the signature. Craig. The name from the phone call. This wasn't just any real estate agent. This was someone Amber was working with closely. Very closely. Around 10 that morning, Derek showed up. Said he was there to help with chores, but I knew better. He was there to watch me, to report back to Amber. His phone never stopped buzzing with text messages. Every time it went off, he'd check it nervously, type something back, glance at me. "You're awful popular today," I said, pretending to be more tired than I was. I shuffled a bit when I walked, played up the weakness. "Just Amber. She worries." "About me or about the farm?" He didn't answer that. Instead, he said, "Dad, do you remember grandson Ryan's birthday last year?" Of course. I sent him that train set 2 weeks before his actual birthday. Kid couldn't wait, wanted to play with it early. Derek looked confused. "You remembered that?" "Why wouldn't I?" "No reason. Amber just. She mentioned you might have forgotten." I filed that away. Another piece of the puzzle. Derek went out to the barn to check the equipment, or so he said. As soon as his truck door closed behind him, I moved faster than I had all morning. Went right to his truck, looked through the passenger window. There was a folder on the seat, plain manila, labeled in neat handwriting, "Dad's Affairs." I opened the truck door. Unlocked, thank God for small-town habits. Grabbed the folder and took it inside, hands shaking slightly. Not from weakness, from anger. The first documents were what I expected. Real estate appraisals, survey maps, comparable sales data for farmland in the county. But underneath those were papers that made my blood run cold. Power of attorney forms, blank, waiting to be filled out. Medical competency questionnaires. And worse, much worse, a typed list of incidents, dated, detailed, October 12th. Forgot grandson's birthday. Didn't send gift or call. That was a lie. A complete, deliberate lie. November 3rd. Left stove on overnight. Fire hazard. Discovered by family during visit. Never happened. I don't even use the stove much anymore. Mostly microwave or eat simple meals. December 1st. Couldn't remember his own phone number when asked by telemarketer. I'd been joking with a scam caller, gave him a fake number to waste his time. Derek had been there, laughing at the time. January 8th. Drove to town but forgot why he went. Returned home confused and upset. I'd changed my mind about going shopping, decided it was too cold, came back home. That's not confusion, that's decision-making. There were 8 more entries like this, all lies or gross distortions. And at the bottom, in Amber's handwriting, pattern of cognitive decline established. Sufficient for conservatorship petition. A business card was clipped to the forms. Lawrence Graham, attorney at law. Graham and Associates, specializing in elder law and estate planning. There was an appointment card stapled to it, next Tuesday, 2 o'clock, with a handwritten note, conservatorship hearing preliminary evaluation, Amber to provide testimony. I put everything back in the folder exactly as I'd found it, returned it to Derek's truck, and went back inside. My hands were shaking for real now. This wasn't just about selling the farm. They were trying to have me declared mentally incompetent. Once they got conservatorship, they'd control everything. my property, my bank accounts, my medical decisions. They could put me in a nursing home if they wanted. I'd have no say in my own life. And Amber had been building a case against me for months, creating false evidence, documenting fake incidents, all leading up to this moment. Derek came back from the barn a half-hour later. I was sitting in my recliner, pretending to doze. He stood in the doorway, watching me. When I opened my eyes, he looked startled. "Dad, I've been thinking. Maybe you should see another doctor. Get a second opinion. On my heart? On everything. Your overall health. Mental health, too." "Mental health? Derek, I had a heart attack. My brain is fine." "I know, but Amber's been worried. She says you've been forgetful. She thinks maybe you should get checked out, just to be safe." I looked at my son, really looked at him. He believed some of this. Amber had been working on him, manipulating him, feeding him these lies for so long that he'd started to question reality, started to doubt his own father's competence. "If it would make you and Amber feel better, I'll think about it," I lied. He seemed relieved. "Thanks, Dad. We just care about you." After he left that evening, I sat in Martha's old rocking chair by the window, watching the sun set over my fields. I was scared. Really, genuinely scared. In America, conservatorship cases can move fast if there's medical evidence and family testimony. People lose their rights, their homes, their entire lives. And it's almost impossible to fight once it's in place. I needed a strategy, needed leverage. Simply defending myself wouldn't be enough. Amber had built too strong a case with her lies. I needed something that would make her back off entirely. But what? I fell asleep in that chair, exhausted and worried, with no idea that the situation was about to get much, much worse. 5 days later, on a Sunday afternoon, I was sitting on my porch when I heard a car coming up the driveway. Not Derek's truck, something else. A dark blue Mercedes, expensive but not new, pulled to a stop near the house. Amber got out first, then her parents. I hadn't seen Gerald and Patricia Hartley in over a year, maybe longer. At Derek and Amber's wedding 7 years ago, they'd seemed like successful, comfortable people. Gerald had been in commercial real estate. Patricia was an interior designer. They'd lived well, talked about their trips to Europe, their lake house, their investments. The people getting out of that Mercedes didn't look anything like the couple I remembered. Gerald had lost at least 20 pounds, his face gray and drawn. His suit hung loose on his frame. Patricia's designer clothes were outdated, several seasons old, and her shoes were scuffed. The Mercedes itself, when I looked closer, was at least 5 years old and had a dent in the rear bumper that hadn't been fixed. These were people under tremendous stress. They climbed the porch steps slowly. Amber brought out lemonade like she owned the place, playing the perfect hostess in my own home. "Hilton, we heard about your heart attack," Patricia said, settling into one of the wicker chairs. "We're so concerned about you." Gerald nodded gravely. "Amber's been keeping us updated. She says you've been having some difficulties managing everything out here." I played along, kept my voice mild. "Getting older is all. Nothing I can't handle." Amber jumped in smoothly. "Dad, you're not being honest with yourself. You admitted to me just last week that you felt overwhelmed." I'd never said any such thing, but she said it like it was absolute fact, right in front of her parents. Gerald leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You know, Hilton, I've been in property development for 35 years. I could help you get top dollar for this place. I still have connections, people who'd pay premium prices for prime farmland like this." Patricia added, "And really, you shouldn't be alone out here. What if something happens? What if you have another heart attack and there's no one around? Derek and Amber worry about you constantly. They were tag-teaming me. This was rehearsed, practiced. All three of them working together to push me toward the same conclusion. Sell the farm, give up my home, my independence, everything." My phone rang inside. I excused myself and went to answer it. It was Walter, an old friend from church. "Hilton, how are you feeling? Heard you were back from the hospital." "I'm fine, Walt. Takes more than a heart attack to knock me down." We talked about church news, about the weather, about spring planting season coming up. While I talked, I watched through the window. Out on the porch, Gerald and Patricia were having an intense, desperate conversation with Amber. Gerald looked like he was pleading. Patricia was crying. Amber was showing them something on her phone, what looked like bank statements or financial documents. This wasn't just family concern, this was desperation. These people needed something from me, and they needed it badly. After they left, I spent the evening on my computer. I might be 67 years old, but I know my way around the internet better than Amber thinks. Started with a simple search. Gerald Hartley Des Moines, real estate. The first results were news articles from 18 months ago. My stomach tightened as I read. Hartley Commercial Properties files for bankruptcy. The article detailed how Gerald's firm had invested heavily in a shopping mall development that collapsed. The anchor tenant pulled out. Construction costs overran the budget, and the whole project imploded. Multiple investors lost money. There were lawsuits. Gerald's business partner was accused of embezzling funds. Gerald himself barely avoided criminal charges, though the article made it clear his reputation was destroyed. I dug deeper. Found more articles. The bankruptcy had been messy, public, devastating. Gerald had lost everything he'd built over 30 years. Then I did something that, looking back, changed everything. I searched property records online. Iowa makes these things public, accessible to anyone who knows where to look. I found the Hartley residence, 2847 Oakmont Drive, Des Moines. Nice neighborhood, good schools, the kind of place successful people live. Current property value, $450,000. Current mortgage balance, $380,000. I sat back in my chair doing the math. They'd bought that house about 15 years ago, I remembered from wedding talk. Probably paid around $300,000 for it back then. But now they owed more than the original purchase price. That meant they'd refinanced, pulled out equity, maybe more than once. People do that when they're desperate for cash. I looked at the mortgage details more carefully. Original lender had been bought out. The mortgage sold to another company, then sold again. That happened a lot during the housing crisis years. Mortgages got bundled and sold like commodities. The current mortgage holder was listed as Heartland Property Trust, LLC. Something about that name tickled at the back of my mind. Heartland Property Trust. Where had I heard that before? I got up, went to my office, pulled open a specific drawer in the file cabinet. Way in the back was a folder I hadn't looked at in years. Label read, Investment Properties, Confidential. My hands shook a little as I opened it. 8 years ago, my financial advisor, a sharp woman named Helen Crawford, had suggested I diversify. The farm was doing well. I had money in the bank, but everything was tied up in agriculture. She said I should spread the risk. She'd suggested buying distressed mortgages. This was right after the housing crisis, when banks were desperate to get bad loans off their books. You could buy them for pennies on the dollar. If the properties foreclosed, you got real estate cheap. If the people kept paying, you got steady income. I'd put $300,000 into a bundle of mortgages, all managed through an LLC Helen set up. I got quarterly statements. Money went into a separate account, but I'd never paid much attention to the details. It was just numbers on paper, managed by professionals. I found the list of properties. 15 mortgages total, scattered across Iowa. Each one had a property number and an address. My eyes scanned down the list. HP 742, 2847 Oakmont Drive, Des Moines, Iowa. The room seemed to tilt sideways. I owned the Hartley's mortgage. I was their creditor. I was the one who would foreclose if they couldn't pay. I grabbed my laptop again, logged into the Heartland Property Trust account. I hadn't checked it in months, maybe a year. The account manager, a man named Philip Torres, handled everything. He sent me quarterly reports I barely read. I looked at the Oakmont Drive properties specifically. The account showed they were 3 months behind on payments. 3 months. That meant foreclosure proceedings should have started. Philip must have sent them notices. Legal warnings. Suddenly, everything clicked into place with horrible clarity. Gerald and Patricia were going to lose their house. My house. The house I owned the mortgage on, even though none of us had realized it. They needed money desperately. If the farm sold for $2.3 million, Derek would presumably inherit his share, or Amber would control it. Amber could then loan or give money to her parents. Save them from foreclosure. That's why Amber was so aggressive, so calculated, so vicious in her planning. Her parents' survival depended on this. They were about to lose everything. And she'd do anything, destroy anyone, to prevent that. but none of them knew that I was the one holding the mortgage. I was the bank. I was the threat they were trying to escape. The irony was so bitter I almost laughed. They were trying to destroy me to save themselves from me, and they had no idea. I should have felt triumphant. I had leverage now, power. I could foreclose on them tomorrow if I wanted. I could use this to make them back off. But all I felt was sick. These were my grandchildren's other grandparents. Emma and Ryan loved their Grammy and Grandpa Hartley. If I foreclosed, those kids would watch their grandparents lose their home. It would devastate them. And Derek, caught in the middle, had no idea about any of this. He didn't know his in-laws were facing financial ruin. He didn't know I owned their mortgage. He was being manipulated by everyone, including his own wife. But if I didn't use this leverage, if I didn't fight back, I'd lose everything. My farm, my independence, my home, possibly even my freedom if they succeeded in getting conservatorship. Derek showed up around 8 that evening, unannounced. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. "Dad, we need to talk. About your options." "Options?" Amber's parents made some good points today. About you being alone out here. About the risks. Maybe assisted living would be better for you. Safer. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. He had no idea. No clue about the financial desperation driving this whole thing. Amber had kept her parents' crisis completely secret from him. "Derek, I'm not going to assisted living. This is my home. But what if something happens? What if you fall, or have another heart attack, or..." "Then I fall. Then I die. But I die in my own house, on my own land. That's worth something." He rubbed his face tiredly. "Amber says you're being stubborn, that you're not thinking clearly." Amber says a lot of things. Not all of them are true. He didn't respond to that. Just sat there, looking miserable and conflicted. After he left, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Martha. If she were here, what would she tell me to do? I could hear her voice in my head, that practical wisdom she always had. Sometimes you've got to make the hard choices, Hilton. Sometimes there's no good option, just the least bad one. I had a weapon now, the mortgage. But using it would hurt innocent people, my grandchildren, Derek, even Gerald and Patricia, who were desperate and drowning, but not evil. The only person who truly deserved to face consequences was Amber. And she'd wrapped herself in so many layers of family that getting to her meant hurting everyone else. I fell asleep that night with no answers, just more questions, and a sick feeling that things were going to get worse before they got better. 10 days after I came home from the hospital, a sheriff's deputy showed up at my door. He was a young guy, looked uncomfortable, handed me an envelope with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hilton. I'm just doing my job." Inside were legal papers, official court documents, stamped and filed. Petition for emergency conservatorship, filed by Derek James Hilton and Amber Louise Hilton, concerned family members. Court hearing scheduled in 12 days. The grounds listed were progressive cognitive decline, inability to manage property and finances, danger to self. The documentation was extensive. 20 pages of affidavits, statements, and supposed evidence. Most of it from Amber, all of it lies or distortions. The list of fake incidents I'd seen in Derek's truck, plus new ones. They claimed I'd left a gate open and cattle got loose. Never happened. They said I'd fallen twice in the past month. Complete fiction. They stated I'd refused to pay bills, and utilities were threatened with shutoff. I'd paid every bill on time for 47 years. There were even supposed testimonies from neighbors about my erratic behavior. I didn't recognize a single name on the list, either made up or people who didn't actually know me. But the worst part was the medical component. The court required a psychiatric evaluation before the hearing. An appointment had already been scheduled for me, tomorrow afternoon, at some place called Crossroads Senior Assessment Center in Cedar Rapids, with Dr. Helen Westbrook, a psychiatrist I'd never heard of. The papers indicated the evaluation had been requested by my family physician, but Dr. Sullivan had never mentioned this to me, not once. Derek showed up mid-morning. He couldn't look me in the eye, just stood in my kitchen doorway, hands in his pockets, looking at the floor. "Dad, I'm sorry," Amber insisted. "She says it's for your own protection." "Protection from what, son? From living in my own house? From owning my own land?" "She says you've been confused, forgetting things. She's worried you'll hurt yourself." "Do I seem confused to you right now? Look at me, Derek. Do I look like someone who doesn't know where he is or what's happening? He finally met my eyes. For a moment, I saw doubt flicker across his face. No, you don't. But she has documentation. Dates, times, specific incidents. I don't know what to believe anymore. My phone rang. Derek's phone. I could hear Amber's voice through the speaker even from across the room, loud and angry. Derek answered, turned away slightly. But I heard every word. Tell him if he cooperates with the evaluation and accepts assisted living, we'll let him keep receiving income from the farm. Tell him if he fights this, we'll have no choice but to seek full guardianship. The lawyer says we have a strong case. Tell him, Derek. Derek's shoulders slumped. He turned back to me, repeated her words almost verbatim, like a puppet with her hand up his back. I kept my voice calm, but inside I was screaming. I'll think about it. After he left, I called the assessment center to confirm the appointment. A cheerful receptionist answered. Yes, Mr. Hilton. You're scheduled for tomorrow at 2 for a cognitive decline evaluation. Who made the referral? Papers shuffled on her end. Let me check. It says here Dr. Angela Morrison referred you. I've never heard of Dr. Morrison. Oh. Her voice became uncertain. Well, it says here she's your treating physician for dementia symptoms. I don't have dementia. I've never seen this doctor in my life. The cheerfulness vanished, replaced by nervousness. I'll have to call you back. She hung up. I immediately started searching online. Dr. Angela Morrison, geriatric psychiatrist, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I found her website. Professional photo, credentials listed, specializing in elderly care and cognitive assessment. But when I dug deeper, I found something else. Medical board complaints, public records, available to anyone who looked. 2 separate cases where she diagnosed patients with cognitive decline who were later proven to be completely competent. In both cases, family members had financial motives. In both cases, the families had been trying to gain control of estates. She'd been reprimanded by the medical board but kept her license. The reviews online were telling, very understanding of family concerns, willing to work with families during difficult times, provides thorough evaluations that support necessary interventions. Translation: she was willing to diagnose whatever you paid her to diagnose. Amber had found a corrupt doctor, set up a fake referral claiming I was already her patient with dementia. If I went to that evaluation tomorrow, I'd be diagnosed as incompetent no matter what I said or did. That diagnosis would go to the judge. Combined with Amber's affidavit and Derek's testimony, I'd lose. I called the center back, canceled the appointment. 1 hour later, my phone rang. A man's voice, professional and cold. Mr. Hilton, this is Lawrence Graham, attorney for your son and daughter-in-law. The lawyer from the business card. I understand you've canceled your psychiatric evaluation. I need to inform you that refusing evaluation will be seen by the court as evidence of impaired judgment. You're making this harder on yourself and your family. Your clients don't want what's best for me, Mr. Graham. They want my farm. There's a difference. Are you refusing necessary medical care? Because that will be noted in our filing. It demonstrates exactly the kind of poor decision-making that concerns your family. Noted by a corrupt psychiatrist who's been reprimanded twice for false diagnoses? I know about Dr. Morrison. There was a pause. Then, I don't know what you think you've discovered, Mr. Hilton, but my clients have legitimate concerns about your welfare. We'll be proceeding with the hearing as scheduled. I strongly suggest you retain counsel. He hung up. That afternoon, I went out to check on the north pasture fence. Something I did regularly, part of maintaining the property. But when I got there, I found a section of fence cut, not broken by weather or wear, cut deliberately with wire cutters. Clean, precise cuts. 12 of my cattle had gotten through to my neighbor's field, Bob Turner's property. Bob was 63, gruff, not the friendliest guy but a fair neighbor. He was standing in his field, arms crossed, glaring at me. Hilton, what the hell? Your cattle destroyed a 1/4 acre of my early wheat. Bob, I'm sorry. The fence was cut. I'll fix it right now and pay for your damages. Cut? Fences don't just cut themselves. Someone did it deliberately. I'll show you. But when we went back to look, he just shook his head. Looks like old fence that gave out to me. You're not keeping up with maintenance. That's the problem. I heard you've been having some difficulties. Who told you that? Around town. People talk. Look, I don't want trouble, but you need to get your affairs in order. It took 3 hours to round up the cattle and fix the fence. By the time I was done, I was exhausted, my chest hurt, and I was furious. Someone had sabotaged my fence deliberately to make me look incompetent, and they'd probably spread rumors ahead of time so people would interpret it the way they wanted. That evening, my bank called. Jerry Walsh, the manager of First National Bank of Cedar County. I'd known Jerry for 30 years. Hilton, I got a concerning call about your account today. From who? Someone claiming to be your son. Said you've been writing checks randomly, possibly a victim of scams. They're requesting we freeze your accounts for your protection. Jerry, you've known me since you started at that bank fresh out of college. Do I sound confused or scammed to you? No, Hilton, you don't. But I had to call. If your family is worried and they get conservatorship, they'll have access to your accounts anyway. I'm just trying to give you a heads up. Don't freeze anything. This is a setup, Jerry. I believe you. But be careful. These things can move fast once they're in motion. After he hung up, I logged into my bank accounts online. Something I did regularly, but tonight I looked more carefully. Went back through 6 months of statements. Small withdrawals I hadn't made. $50 here, $80 there. $100 from the ATM on dates when I hadn't been in town. Nothing huge, nothing that would trigger fraud alerts. But consistent, regular. Total missing, $3,200. Amber had been stealing from me. Small amounts, under the radar, for months. Then I found my checkbook. 3 check stubs filled out in handwriting that looked similar to mine but wasn't quite right. Someone had practiced forging my signature. The checks were made out to cash, $500. Cedar Rapids Senior Care, $1,200. I'd never written a check to any senior care facility. Medical Alert Systems Incorporated, $800. I'd never ordered any medical alert system. These fake checks would be used as evidence that I was confused, writing checks for things I didn't remember, being taken advantage of by scam companies. It was brilliant in an evil way. Every piece of evidence, every lie, carefully constructed to build a case. And if I fought back too hard, if I seemed too competent, they'd just say I was having good days, and the bad days were the real problem. My phone rang again. Walter from church? Hilton, I wanted to call and check on you. I heard you were quite ill. Amber reached out to the church prayer chain. She said you're not up for visitors, that you need quiet and rest. Walt, I'm fine. I'd love to have visitors. Oh. Well, she also mentioned you've been having some confusion, mental difficulties. She asked people to give you space. Did she now? Hilton, is everything okay? You sound upset. I wanted to tell him everything. But Walter was 74, a good man but also a gossip. Anything I said would be all over church by Sunday. I had to be careful. I'm fine, Walt. Just dealing with some family issues. I'd appreciate it if you kept me in your prayers. Of course. And Hilton, if you need anything, you let me know. But I knew he wouldn't visit. None of my friends would. Amber had isolated me effectively. When the court case came, I'd look like a lonely old man with no support system. No one to vouch for me. Around 11 that night, headlights came up my driveway. Derek's truck. But just Derek, no Amber. He came to the door, and I could tell immediately he'd been drinking. His eyes were red. Dad, can I come in? Of course. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where Martha and I had eaten thousands of meals, where Derek had done his homework as a kid, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays. I don't know what's real anymore, Derek said, his voice breaking. Amber shows me all this evidence. The checks, the incidents, the neighbor complaints. But when I talk to you, you seem fine. Completely fine. That's because I am fine, son. But she says, you're good at hiding it. That denial is part of the disease. That you don't even realize you're declining. He put his head in his hands. She's been so angry lately, so focused on everything going perfectly. And if I question anything, if I push back, she explodes. Derek, what's really going on with Amber? He looked up at me, tears on his face. She threatened to leave, to take Emma and Ryan and leave. She said if I don't support this conservatorship, if I don't back her up in court, she'll divorce me and I'll lose my kids. She said her parents will testify I'm an unstable father, that her lawyer already has papers drawn up. So Derek did know about the threat. But did he know about his in-laws' financial crisis? Son, Do you know about Gerald and Patricia's situation? Their financial problems. Yeah, they're in trouble. Lost a lot of money. Amber says if we don't help them, they'll lose their house. And she thinks selling my farm is the way to help them? She says it's the only way. That you'd want to help family if you were thinking clearly. What Derek didn't know was that I was the one who owned that mortgage. That the house his in-laws were about to lose was mine. That this whole nightmare was built on a coincidence none of us had known about. After Derek left, I sat alone in the dark. The court date was 12 days away now. Every day, Amber tightened the noose a little more, sabotaging my farm, stealing my money, spreading rumors, cutting me off from friends, setting up rigged medical evaluations. Every move I made to look competent could be twisted. Every mistake, no matter how small, would be documented and used against me. And I still hadn't told anyone about the mortgage. Because using that weapon meant destroying Derek's marriage, traumatizing my grandchildren, and leaving Gerald and Patricia homeless. But if I didn't use it, I'd lose everything. I finally fell asleep around 3 in the morning, in Martha's rocking chair, exhausted and terrified and out of options. Or so I thought. 5 days before the court hearing, I drove into Jefferson City. Population 8,000, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone. I'd lived here my whole life. These were my people, my community. I stopped at the hardware store first. Paul Stevens had owned it for 40 years. I'd been buying supplies from him since I was 20 years old. But when I walked in, Paul barely looked at me. He was restocking shelves, wouldn't make eye contact. "Morning, Paul. Hilton, how are you feeling? Heard about your health troubles." "I'm fine. Recovering well." He nodded but didn't seem convinced. Another customer, Janet Pierce, was looking at paint samples. She whispered to Paul loud enough for me to hear, "Shame when they lose their faculties. He doesn't even know how bad off he is." I bought what I needed and left. Every store I went to, it was the same. Sympathetic looks, avoidance, whispered conversations that stopped when I got close. Amber had been working the town gossip network like a professional. Everyone believed I was declining. Everyone thought my family was doing the right thing by taking over. I stopped at Main Street Diner for lunch. Sarah, the waitress, had been a teenager when she started working there. Now she was 35, still working the same job, knew every regular customer by name and order. But today she treated me like a child. "Mr. Hilton, do you need help reading the menu?" I'd been ordering the same thing every week for 20 years. Cheeseburger, fries, coffee. "No, Sarah, I know what I want." She brought me soup without asking. Made it easier to eat, I guess, assumed I'd have trouble with solid food. Other diners watched me, whispered. I heard fragments. "His daughter-in-law is such a saint. Taking care of everything. Awful when they go like that." I paid and left. Appetite gone. When I got home, there was a county vehicle in my driveway. A pickup truck with Jefferson County Assessor written on the side. Martin Cole, the assessor, was walking my property with a clipboard. I'd known Martin for 15 years. He'd assessed this farm multiple times. "Martin, what are you doing?" He looked uncomfortable. "Routine evaluation, Hilton. County received concerns about property maintenance violations, complaints about structures in disrepair, possible safety hazards. Who complained? Anonymous tip to the county office. You know I have to follow up. This farm is maintained perfectly. You've seen it yourself. I'm just doing my job. I'll file my report." I knew what that report would say. It would find something, anything, to support the narrative that I couldn't handle the property anymore. The next morning, I went to start my main tractor, the John Deere I'd bought 6 years ago. Well maintained, ran perfectly. I used it almost every day during farming season. The engine wouldn't turn over. Wouldn't even try. Just dead silence. I checked the fuel tank. There was sugar in the gas. Deliberate sabotage. I could see the white crystals, the syrup residue. Someone had poured sugar into my gas tank, destroying the engine. My backup tractor, an older model, slashed hydraulic lines. Fluid leaked all over the barn floor. I couldn't work my fields, couldn't move equipment, couldn't feed the cattle properly. Whoever was doing this knew farm equipment, knew exactly how to disable machinery. I had to call a repair service. $700 to fix the hydraulic lines, over $2,000 to clean the fuel system and repair the John Deere. But I made sure to document everything. Took photos. Saved the fuel with sugar as evidence. Collected the slashed hydraulic lines. That afternoon I made a decision. I needed a lawyer. My longtime attorney, Richard Foster, had handled Martha's estate and all my farm business for 20 years. I called his office. His secretary answered, her voice sympathetic but firm. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hilton. Richard can't take your case. There's a conflict of interest. He's been consulted by your son regarding this matter." "What? When?" "Last week. Derek and his wife came in for a consultation. That means Richard can't represent you. It would be a conflict." Amber had thought of everything. She'd gotten to my lawyer first, consulted with him just enough to create a legal conflict, making him unable to help me. I called 3 other lawyers in the county. All suddenly had scheduling conflicts or didn't handle conservatorship defense or were too busy to take new clients. Word had spread. No one wanted to get involved. Finally, I found someone willing to help. Catherine Brooks, an attorney in Iowa City, 90 minutes away. 52 years old, tough reputation, specialized in elder law but from the defense side, protecting seniors' rights, not taking them away. I drove to her office that same afternoon, documents in hand. Catherine was sharp-eyed. No nonsense. She looked through the petition, the affidavits, all the evidence I'd brought showing sabotage and forgery. "Mr. Hilton, I'll be honest with you. This is bad. They've built a compelling paper trail. The medical referral, the documented incidents, the financial irregularities, the property maintenance complaints. Judges err on the side of caution with elderly individuals. If that psychiatrist testifies you're declining and your own family is saying you're incompetent." She paused. "What assets are at stake here?" 300 acres, the house, equipment, about $2.5 million total, maybe more depending on land prices. Catherine's expression darkened. "That's motive, substantial motive, but proving malicious intent is difficult. The court will assume family members have your best interests at heart unless we can show otherwise." She leaned forward. "Do you have any leverage? Anything that would make them back off? Any information they wouldn't want public?" I hesitated. This was the moment. Either I told her about the mortgage or I didn't. Once I told her, once we used it, there was no going back. I own their parents' mortgage, the Hartleys. Amber's parents. They're facing foreclosure, 3 months behind on payments. They need money desperately. I own the debt through an LLC, and none of them know. Catherine's eyes widened. "You own their mortgage? And they have no idea?" "No one knows. It's held through Heartland Property Trust. I bought it as an investment 8 years ago." She sat back, processing. "That's your nuclear option. But Hilton, using it will destroy family relationships. Your grandchildren will watch their maternal grandparents lose their home. Your son will be caught in the middle. It's scorched earth. What choice do I have? Let me think about strategy. The hearing is in 5 days. We need to be smart about this." That evening, Derek brought Emma and Ryan to visit. My grandchildren. I hadn't seen them since before the hospital. Emma was 9 years old, smart as a whip, usually running to hug me the second she saw me. Not today. She hung back, wary. "Hi, Grandpa." "Hi, sweetheart. Come here. Let me give you a hug." She approached slowly, gave me a brief, stiff hug. Ryan, 6 years old, wouldn't come near me at all. Stayed by his father's side, looking at me like I was a stranger. "Mommy says you're sick," Emma said. "She says you don't remember things." My heart broke. Amber had been poisoning them against me, teaching them to fear me, to see me as diminished. "I'm okay, Emma. My heart was sick, but it's getting better. My brain works just fine. Mommy says, you might have to move away. To a place with nurses." "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. This is my home." But she didn't believe me. I could see the doubt in her eyes, the fear. She was 9 years old and already learning to question what I said, to trust her mother's version over mine. After they left, I sat alone in the dark house, thinking about what was at stake. If I lost this case, I wouldn't just lose the farm and my independence. I'd lose my grandchildren. They'd remember me as the confused old man who had to be taken away, the grandfather who couldn't be trusted. Around midnight, Derek came back, alone. He'd been drinking. I could smell it on him when he came through the door. "Dad, I need to tell you something I should have said weeks ago." We sat at the kitchen table. He put his head in his hands. "Amber's having an affair with Craig, the real estate agent, for 8 months. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I found out 3 months ago. Text messages, late-night phone calls, lies about where she was going. I confronted her. She promised to end it. She didn't. His voice broke. She said if I caused problems, if I didn't go along with this, she'd divorce me and take the kids. She said her parents would testify I was an unstable father, that she had evidence of drinking, neglect, mental issues. Her lawyer already drew up papers. Derek, why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed, because I didn't want to believe it, because I thought if I just went along, if I didn't make waves, maybe she'd change her mind. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. But she won't. This isn't about you being sick. This isn't about taking care of you. It's about money. It's about her and Craig and her parents and this whole plan they've built. What plan? She wants the money from selling the farm. She and Craig are planning to move to Arizona, together. Take Emma and Ryan and start over. Her parents get enough to save their house. Craig gets his commission. She gets to leave with millions and be set financially. And you? I lose everything. My wife, my kids, my father's farm. I become the ex-husband she left behind, the man too weak to stand up to her. He was sobbing now. I'm sorry, Dad, I'm so sorry. I've been helping her destroy you, and it's killing me. I reached across the table, put my hand on his, then help me stop her. I don't know how. She's thought of everything. Not everything. Tomorrow there's an Adult Protective Services inspection. Amber called them, reported me as living in unsafe conditions. She's been setting things up. Spoiled food in the fridge, disconnected water heater, trash scattered outside. When APS comes, they'll see evidence. I can't care for myself. Derek looked horrified. She's sabotaging your house? She's been sabotaging everything. The farm, my reputation, my finances. Building a case one lie at a time. What do? We fight back. We stop playing defense and start attacking. But it's going to get ugly, son. Are you ready for that? He wiped his eyes, straightened up. For the first time in weeks, I saw something like determination in his face. What do you need me to do? We spent the next 2 hours cleaning and fixing everything Amber had sabotaged. Removed spoiled food, reconnected the water heater, cleaned the yard. But I kept the evidence, photographed everything first. At 3 in the morning, Derek left, and I sat in Martha's chair, knowing that in 5 days everything would come to a head. The court hearing would be the battlefield, and I was finally ready to fight. The day before the court hearing, I woke at dawn. The Adult Protective Services caseworker was coming at 9, Linda Morrison, no relation to the corrupt psychiatrist. I'd spent hours the previous night preparing, but not in the way Amber expected. Linda arrived exactly on time, middle-aged, professional, carrying a clipboard and a camera. She looked sympathetic but also wary, like she'd seen too many bad situations. Mr. Hilton, thank you for letting me visit. I understand there have been concerns about your living conditions. Yes, because my daughter-in-law has been sabotaging my property to make me look incompetent. She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. That's a serious allegation. I have evidence. I showed her everything. The jar with sugar from my tractor's gas tank, the cut fence wires, photocopies of the forged checks, timeline of the sabotage incidents matched to dates when Amber visited. The fake incident reports with dates that contradicted reality. Linda's expression shifted from sympathy to sharp attention. Mr. Hilton, these are very serious claims. Check your report. See who made the anonymous tip about my living conditions. I guarantee it traces back to Amber Hilton or someone working with her. She made extensive notes, took photos of my evidence, then inspected the house. Kitchen clean, well stocked, bathroom functional, hot water working, bedroom organized, living areas tidy. My farm records, meticulous and current, dating back 47 years. Mr. Hilton, you seem perfectly capable to me. Articulate, organized, clear-minded. Your home is well maintained. That's because I am capable. I'm not declining. I'm being targeted. I'll be honest in my report, but I have to warn you, in court cases like this, judges often listen to family testimony over outside assessors. I understand. Just tell the truth. That's all I ask. After she left, I called Catherine Brooks. Catherine, I've decided. I'm using the mortgage. We go nuclear. What's the strategy? She was quiet for a moment. Are you absolutely certain? This will blow up your family. My family already blew up. I'm just dealing with the aftermath. All right, here's what we do. We don't reveal the mortgage until you're on the stand. Let them present their whole case. Let them commit to their lies under oath. Amber, her parents, everyone. Then you take the stand. We present your evidence of sabotage, theft, forgery. Finally, we reveal you own the Hartley mortgage. Show the judge the real motive. Judges hate being manipulated. If we can prove this is financial desperation and greed, not genuine concern, we win. What do I need to bring? Everything. Bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals, photos of sabotage, copies of forged checks, timeline of incidents, and the smoking gun. Mortgage documents proving you own the Hartley property through Heartland Property Trust. I spent the afternoon organizing everything into folders. Evidence, documentation, proof. This was 47 years of my life I was fighting for. 4 generations of family history. I wasn't going down without swinging. Around 11 that night, headlights came up the driveway. Not Derek's truck. The dark blue Mercedes, Gerald and Patricia Hartley. They looked terrified. Patricia was crying before she even got out of the car. "Hilton, please. We need to talk." I let them in. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Derek and I had sat the night before. Gerald's hands shook as he spoke. "Hilton, we know about tomorrow's hearing. Amber told us everything. She said you're fighting the conservatorship, that you'll ruin everything." Patricia sobbed openly. "We're going to lose our house. The foreclosure notice came today. We have 30 days. Gerald broke down. "We didn't know about the sabotage, the forged checks, the lies. We just thought you'd eventually agree to sell. We didn't know Amber was doing all this." "When did Derek tell you?" "Tonight. He called us, told us about the medical fraud, the stolen money, everything. We swear we didn't know." Patricia reached across the table. "Please, Hilton, if there's any way, we'll sign anything. Testify you're competent. Stop Amber. We just need enough from the sale to survive." They were begging me to sell my farm to save them, and they still didn't know. I stood up, went to my office, pulled out the mortgage documents, came back and laid them on the table. "You want to know who holds your mortgage? Who's going to foreclose on you in 30 days? Gerald picked up the papers, read, went white. Patricia gasped. "Heartland Property Trust. That's you? I bought your mortgage 8 years ago through an investment LLC. I didn't know it was your specific house. But yes, I own your debt. I'm the bank." The silence was crushing. Patricia started sobbing uncontrollably. Gerald looked like he might collapse. "Oh God, what have we done? You've been helping Amber destroy the one person who could save you." Gerald's voice was barely a whisper. "We're so sorry. We didn't know. Sorry doesn't fix this. But here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, you both go to court. You testify that you were pressured by Amber, that you now believe I'm fully competent. You expose everything she's done, and if you do that, I'll restructure your mortgage, reduce the principal, lower the payments, give you a chance to keep your house. But if you lie for her tomorrow, I'll foreclose. You'll have nothing." Gerald stared at me. "That's blackmail." "No, that's justice. You chose to be part of this. Now choose which side you're really on." Derek had been sitting in the living room, heard everything. He came into the kitchen, looked at his in-laws with a mixture of pity and anger. "I'm testifying for Dad tomorrow, against Amber," Patricia pleaded. "Derek, she'll take the children. She's already taking everything. At least this way I fight for what's right. At least I don't become what she is." Derek's phone rang. "Amber." He put it on speaker. "Where are you? Why are you at your father's? We agreed you'd stay away tonight." "Amber, it's over. I know about Craig. I know about all of it. About the affair, the lies, everything." Her voice turned to ice. "If you testify against me tomorrow, you'll never see Emma and Ryan again. I'll make sure of it. My lawyer has evidence you're an unfit father. Drinking, neglect, mental instability. I'll get full custody and move them so far away you'll never find them." She hung up. Derek collapsed into a chair. Gerald and Patricia looked destroyed, and I stood there realizing what I'd done. To save myself, I'd weaponized their desperation. I'd turn family against family. The grandchildren would be caught in the middle. Derek might lose his kids. The Hartleys could still lose their home. even with a restructured mortgage. Even if I won tomorrow, what had I really won? It was 4 in the morning when everyone finally left. The hearing was in 5 hours. I sat alone in the dark, thinking about Martha. Sometimes, the right thing and the easy thing are worlds apart. I knew what I had to do, but the cost was going to be higher than I'd ever imagined. Dawn came slowly, like it was reluctant to face what was ahead. The courtroom in the Jefferson County Courthouse was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench at the front, Judge Margaret Thompson presiding. A woman in her early 60s with 30 years on the bench and a reputation for being tough but fair. I arrived with Catherine Brooks. Derek sat with us, looking like he hadn't slept. Across the aisle, Amber sat with Lawrence Graham, her lawyer. She was dressed perfectly, hair styled, makeup subtle. She looked like the concerned daughter-in-law, worried about her elderly father-in-law's declining health. Gerald and Patricia Hartley sat in the back, looking terrified and broken. A few townspeople had come to watch. Small-town entertainment, I suppose. An old man fighting to keep his farm, a family tearing itself apart. Judge Thompson called the court to order. Graham stood to present the petition. Your Honor, this is a tragic but necessary case. Mr. Hilton is a good man, a respected member of this community, but he's declining. His family, who love him deeply, are seeking conservatorship not to control him, but to protect him. He presented the 20-page affidavit, called Amber to testify. She was perfect, poised, sympathetic, every inch the devoted daughter-in-law. Your Honor, this breaks my heart. I love my father-in-law, but he's not the same man he was. He forgets things. He makes dangerous decisions. Just last month, he left a gate open, and his cattle got loose. He's written checks he doesn't remember. He refuses to acknowledge he needs help. She described all the fake incidents with perfect detail, made it sound so real, so concerning. The doctor said stress could cause another heart attack. He needs care, not the burden of managing a 300-acre farm. We're not trying to take anything from him. We just want him safe. Graham then called Dr. Angela Morrison via video testimony. She appeared on the courtroom screen, professional and confident. Based on my review of Mr. Hilton's medical history and extensive family reports, he shows clear signs of cognitive impairment, progressive decline, memory issues, poor judgment. I recommend immediate conservatorship for his safety and well-being. Dr. Morrison, when exactly did you evaluate Mr. Hilton? Catherine asked on cross-examination. I reviewed his comprehensive records and conducted detailed interviews with family members. But you never actually examined him in person, did you? Morrison hesitated. Direct examination isn't always necessary for preliminary assessment when family consultation provides sufficient data. Catherine pulled out documents. Yet you listed him as an active patient under your care in the court filing. You claimed to be his treating physician for dementia symptoms. That's insurance fraud, Dr. Morrison, isn't it? Morrison's face tightened. She stammered something about standardized procedures. Judge Thompson leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Catherine called Linda Morrison next. No relation to the corrupt psychiatrist, but the APS caseworker who'd inspected my home. I evaluated Mr. Hilton's residence yesterday. He was completely articulate, organized, living independently in a well-maintained home. The anonymous concerns that triggered my visit appeared to be fabricated. I found evidence of deliberate sabotage to his property, likely intended to make him appear incompetent. Graham tried to object. Judge Thompson overruled him. Linda described the sugar in the gas tank, the cut fences, the timeline that didn't match the claimed incidents. Then it was my turn to testify. Catherine led me through questions methodically. I was calm, clear, precise. Mr. Hilton, are you confused about your own farm? No, ma'am. I've worked that land for 47 years. 300 acres, rotating crops of corn and soybeans, 48 head of cattle. I know every inch, every fence post, every piece of equipment. I recited property tax amounts from memory, equipment maintenance schedules, crop yields from the past 5 years. My bank account numbers, current balances accurate to the dollar. Catherine showed the forged checks. A forensic document examiner testified the signatures weren't mine, pointed out the hesitation marks, the wrong pen pressure. We presented the bank statements showing unauthorized withdrawals. The timeline of sabotage incidents, all on dates when Amber had access to the farm. Derek testified next. His voice shook, but he was honest. I was wrong. My father is completely competent. I was manipulated into filing this petition. My wife threatened to take my children if I didn't cooperate. She's having an affair with the real estate agent. This isn't about my father's health. It's about selling his farm and taking the money. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Amber went pale. Graham looked furious. Then Catherine called Gerald Hartley. He took the stand reluctantly, looking at Amber with something like apology, then at me with shame. We were desperate. Facing foreclosure on our home. My business failed. We lost everything. Amber said if the farm sold, she could help us financially. We went along with the conservatorship plan because we were scared. But I know now that Hilton is completely capable, sharp as he's ever been. We were wrong to support this. We shouldn't have let desperation make us do something wrong. Patricia testified similarly, crying through her statement. Then came the moment I'd been building toward. Catherine stood. Your Honor, there's one more critical piece of information, the real motive behind this entire case. She approached the bench with documents. Mortgage papers, foreclosure notices, LLC formation documents. Mr. Hilton owns the mortgage on the Hartley residence through an investment company called Heartland Property Trust. The Hartleys are 3 months behind on payments, facing foreclosure within 30 days. They need money urgently. This entire conservatorship petition is about seizing Mr. Hilton's farm to generate funds to save the Hartley family from foreclosure on a debt they owe to Mr. Hilton himself. It's fraud, Your Honor. Elaborately planned, carefully executed fraud. The courtroom exploded. Judge Thompson pounded her gavel. Amber stood up, shouting, "He's been threatening them. He owns their house and he's been holding it over their heads. Mrs. Hilton, sit down or I'll hold you in contempt." Graham tried to salvage it. Your Honor, even if the motive is financial, that doesn't automatically prove Mr. Hilton is competent. Then let him demonstrate, Catherine said. I recited from memory. My bank account numbers, current balance to the penny, the exact amount and dates of the Hartley mortgage payments, the precise survey boundaries of my farm property, the names of 20 townspeople sitting in the courtroom, Judge Thompson's full name and years of service. Then I looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, I had a heart attack. It damaged my heart muscle, not my brain. I'm 67 years old, and I've earned the right to manage my own land, my own life. I'm not declining. I'm being attacked by people who want what I've spent a lifetime building. Judge Thompson didn't deliberate, didn't take a recess. She'd seen enough. I've heard enough testimony and reviewed sufficient evidence. This petition for conservatorship is denied. Not just denied, but I'm finding it was filed in bad faith with fraudulent intent. She looked at me. Mr. Hilton, you clearly have full capacity to manage your own affairs. I see no evidence of cognitive decline, only evidence of deliberate sabotage and manipulation. Then she turned to Amber and Graham. Mrs. Hilton, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of fraud, forgery, theft, and elder abuse. You should retain criminal counsel immediately. Mr. Graham, I'll be filing a complaint with the State Bar Association regarding your role in this. Case dismissed. The gavel came down. Amber fled the courtroom. Graham followed, already distancing himself. Derek broke down in relief. Catherine squeezed my shoulder. Gerald and Patricia approached me slowly. Thank you for letting us tell the truth. We know we don't deserve mercy. Come to my office tomorrow. We'll restructure that mortgage. Reasonable terms, payments you can handle. You'll keep your house. Patricia started crying again. Why? After what we did to you. Because my grandchildren need their grandparents. All of them. Because mercy matters more than revenge. Because I remember what it's like to be desperate and scared. Outside the courthouse, Derek and I stood in the spring sunshine. I'm filing for divorce. And for custody. Good. Tell the truth. You'll win. What about Emma and Ryan? They'll understand eventually. Kids are resilient. They'll see what's real once the lies stop. We hugged. A real hug, father and son, for the first time in months. 3 weeks later, Amber faced criminal charges. She fled to Arizona with Craig before the trial, ironically doing exactly what Derek had said she planned. Warrants were issued. Derek got temporary custody of Emma and Ryan. Divorce proceedings began. I restructured the Hartley mortgage, reduced the principal by 30%, lowered the interest rate, gave them breathing room. They made their first payment on time, sent a handwritten thank you note. The community learned the truth. People apologized. The church prayer chain prayed for justice, not for my declining health. My friends visited again. Emma and Ryan came to the farm every Sunday for dinner. At first, Emma was confused, wary. But kids are smart. They figure things out. One evening, sitting on the porch, watching the sun set over 300 acres of Iowa farmland, Emma asked me a question. "Grandpa, why didn't you just sell the farm? It would have been easier." I pulled her close. Easy and right aren't the same thing, sweetheart. This land is 4 generations of work. Your great-great-grandfather broke this soil with a horse and plow. I couldn't let someone steal it just because standing up was hard. Ryan, sitting on my other side, asked, "But you saved Grammy and Grandpa Hartley's house, even though they were mean to you." That's the other lesson, buddy. Revenge might feel good for a minute, but mercy feels better and it lasts longer. I could have taken their house, could have destroyed them. But that wouldn't have made me right. It would have made me just like the people trying to hurt me. After Derek took the kids home that evening, I sat alone on the porch, talked to Martha the way I sometimes do. "Martha, I wish you were here to see this. You were right about Amber from the start. But you were right about something else, too. You always said, the measure of a man isn't what he does when things are easy, it's what he does when everything's on the line. I could have used that mortgage to destroy them, could have left Gerald and Patricia homeless. But that wouldn't have made me right. The farm is still mine. The family is healing. Derek has his kids. And I can sleep at night. Sometimes the hardest fight isn't with other people. It's with yourself. It's choosing to be better than they are, even when they don't deserve it." The farm stretched out before me in the fading light. 300 acres of rich Iowa soil, 4 generations of roots, and it was staying in the family right where it belonged. If you're facing betrayal from people you trusted, remember this. Truth is patient. Justice might be slow, but it's thorough. Stand up for yourself, but don't become the thing you're fighting against. Protect what matters, but don't lose your humanity in the process. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't crushing your enemies. It's proving you're better than they thought you were. The farm is still here. So am I. And that's enough. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between revenge and mercy when someone betrayed you? What did you choose, and how did it turn out? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the strength to overcome. And share this with someone who needs to hear that standing up for what's right is always worth it, even when it's hard. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that dignity, truth, and mercy are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. May you find the strength to stand firm when tested, and the wisdom to choose compassion over cruelty. Take care, and remember, sometimes the land you stand on is worth defending, but the person you become in the fight matters even more.